A complaint I hear often from beginner knitters is that they feel like their skills kind of stall out. Sweaters can feel too intimidating, other stitches feel a little scary, and they don't know where to begin. This video is going to be an extremely practical guide to 7 different knitting techniques that you can master to elevate your skills from beginner to a more intermediate advanced level, and a few free pattern options for each one to help you learn, practice, and master that skill. Let's dive right in. We're going to walk through the 7 different knitting techniques that I think you need to elevate you from a beginner to a more intermediate advanced level, and the free knitting patterns you can use to practice and master those skills. To start, I think the first skill that most knitters need to elevate from beginner to intermediate is knitting in the round. When we learn how to knit, it's almost always flat, and knitting in the round opens up a range of possibilities for sweaters, hats, and cowls that I think is a nice upgrade from knitting flat. A great place to start for knitting in the round is the Simple Yet Effective Cowl by Tin Can Knits. Now, I really trust Tin Can Knits. They have tons of free patterns with lots and lots of tutorial information to help beginners learn and advance their skills. And this is no exception. The truth of the matter about a cowl is that they are just a circular tube of fabric. They aren't really that complicated, but I find them super wearable, super warm, really, really fun, easy to toss in your pocket and take on the go. I much prefer a cowl to a scarf. They're a great gift to give because they don't take too long to whip up. The Simple Yet Effective Cowl is a great place to start to just practice knitting in the round without worrying too much about complicated stitches or shaping. Now, once you've tackled the Simple Yet Effective Cowl, or if you feel that it's just a little bit too simple for your taste, I'd recommend the Honey Cowl. I love this pattern. I've knit it myself. It has a little bit of a textural detail that makes it look really, really pretty, especially with like a hand-dyed or a variegated yarn. I find it very wearable. I knit mine a little bit longer so I could double it over, which is so warm and cozy in the winter. And that slip stitch design adds a little bit of interest, so you're not just knitting and purling in the round. The next skill we're going to tackle is actually a twofer. We're going to talk about increases and decreases, and we're also going to talk about magic loop or DPNs. For this, we're going to talk about hats, because a hat is kind of like a cowl with a section on top that closes up. There are a few ways to do it. These patterns are going to help guide you through those decreases and give you a space to practice them. So the 2x2 beanie is a great place to start. It's a very simple beanie, and you can practice your increases and decreases at the crown of that hat. You'll probably feel confident casting on and working your way up, and then you can practice your increases and decreases. The classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho is another great option. It's been knit thousands and thousands of times for a reason. It looks really beautiful and it's really wearable. Both of these hats will also require you to practice magic loop or DPN knitting when you get to the top or the crown of the hat, but by that point you're almost done and you're so ready to get it done that you're really motivated. I think that these are a great place to practice both of those skills.
Now, hats are a great way to practice decreases, but shawls are a great way to practice increases. You start them at the upper back part of the neck, and each row slowly gets longer as you increase along the process of knitting the shawl. This particular shawl features both visible and invisible increases, so yarn overs paired with decreases create a decorative element of the holes you see in the shawl, but make one right and make one left are used as invisible increases to create the shaping and the spine that goes down the center of the shawl. Now, I think these kind of fell out of fashion in the last 10 years or so, but I think shawls are just so fun to knit and wear. It's a great way to practice increases either way.
We've tackled knitting in the round, decreases, and knitting on a small circumference. And you've pretty much achieved all the skills at this point that you need to knit a sweater. But there is one more skill that we do need in most sweater patterns, and that is short rows. Short rows really freak people out. They make them really intimidated. I'm telling you, it is not that complicated, but it can help to have a really simple, approachable, small project to practice short rows on. And I think the perfect short row practice project is calorimetry, which is a great little ear warmer. It is so wearable, so easy to toss in your pocket and have on the go. Even though this pattern is kind of older, it's like a decade or so old, it is still, I think, wearable today. And the entire garment is shaped with short rows back and forth. It's a great place to practice because ripping out your mistakes doesn't feel that bad when you only have this much fabric to rip out. And you can make a bunch of these with one skein of yarn, pop them out, or use a little bit of a scrap so you don't have to buy a special skein just for this. You can use scrap yarn and just practice your short rows on it. They're also really great gifts. The bandana cowl by Pearl Soho is another great option for practicing short rows. One nice thing about the bandana cowl is you're practicing short rows on a stockinette background rather than on a ribbed background like in the calorimetry headband. It really mimics the way that short rows work in a sweater neckline. I love the bandana cowl specifically to prep you for sweater knitting and the way that short rows work in a stockinette sweater. Between knitting in the round, increases and decreases, small circumference knitting, and short rows, you really have all the tools you need to make a sweater. But there are still knitters who feel like they're at a beginner level, even if they've achieved sweater knitting. And so there are a couple more skills that I think will help you feel more confident to call yourself an intermediate knitter. One of those skills is cable knitting. Cable knitting can feel really intimidating for a lot of people. You need a cable needle, you're reading a chart, it can feel like a lot. So here are two patterns you can use to practice cable knitting, to feel really confident in them, and to see that it's actually not that hard after all. Because between you and me, I think if you can knit and purl, you can cable. Just trust me. You're just rearranging stitches on your needle, you'll see. I think a great place to start is the Antler Toque by Tin Can Knits. I think this is such a cute, wearable, timeless hat for winter. There's lots and lots and lots of cabling on this, so you'll have lots of opportunities to practice. And because Tin Can Knits is so great at beginner knitting and tutorial, this is going to really hold your hand and walk you through the process of cabling. I understand that this may look intimidating at first glance, but I promise it's really approachable. And because it's a free pattern, you can go ahead and take a look right now with no commitment and see if it's for you. Now, if you're not a hat person, like I can't wear hats over this hair, or if you just want something different, I love Callison from the Barocco design team. I think that this is such a fun, wearable ear cover. It's got a slightly different cable design than the toque, so if you've already knit that hat and you want to practice some different cabling, this is another opportunity to build your confidence before diving into a bigger project. Once people tackle cables, they tend to want to tackle lace, and those two seem to be the more complicated stitches that really intimidate beginner knitters, but I promise cables and lace are both super achievable. One of my first projects, actually two of my first projects, were a cable scarf and a lace scarf, and the lace scarf that I chose to knit first was this one, Branching Out from Knitty. It's a really great, easy to remember lace chart that helps you read your stitches, follow a chart, and learn how to knit lace very easily. One thing I love about this lace chart is that you are purling back across each row, so it's not lace charting on both sides of the fabric. You do one row of lace across, and you could take a break and just kind of work your way back across in purls before you prepare yourself for another lace row. I love this scarf for beginner lace knitters. I think it really takes the intimidation and the fear out of lace knitting and makes it seem like something super approachable. And if you've tackled branching out, or you kind of have dabbled in lace and you're ready for something a little bit more advanced, don't freak out. Aeolian. Don't freak out. It's a beautiful lace shawl pattern. Now this is a beast. It's a big, big project, and it's definitely a commitment to tackle. However, when you break it down and look at the lace charts, nothing that's going on here is really that complex. You're just following stitch after stitch, just like you were in branching out, but there are a few more stitch patterns, and because it's a triangular shawl, you're starting in a smaller row section and each row is getting longer, which is a really nice way to build up your tolerance for lace, starting with short rows that feel really approachable and then working your way longer and longer and longer until at the end you have multiple hundreds of stitches in a row and you're like, wow, why did I get myself into this? And then you bind off and you're all done and you realize it was all worth it. One thing I love about Aeolian as well is if you really want to advance your skills and try something new, there is an option to bead the shawl. It looks beautiful, and it's a really fun way to advance your lace skill. Now, from cables to lace, I would also say colorwork is one of those things that really intimidates newer knitters and makes them feel stuck at a beginner level. And if you are looking for a place to expand your colorwork skills, I would check out this hat and cowl called Anthology by Tin Can Knits. You'll notice I really like Tin Can Knits for these beginner tutorial patterns because they make them available for free and they really walk you through every step. Their patterns are very clear, they're well organized, they're clearly edited, and they're beautifully laid out, and I think they're a pleasure to work from. So I really recommend Tin Can Knits. This hat and cowl are very wearable, and because the shapes are so simple, you just get to practice working with two colors and learning how to do color work. These are great places to start to remove the intimidation and to practice your skills in color work before you dive into something that's a bigger commitment, like a sweater. We've already covered most of the skills that really intimidate newer knitters, but there's one more that I think is overlooked, and that's picking up stitches. Some new knitters just get really nervous about picking up stitches, and so for that, I would recommend a mitered square blanket. Now, if you ever did a mitered square blanket, you know that a key part of this project is picking up stitches with every single square. And so if you are nervous about picking up stitches, I think this is a fun way to increase your confidence in picking up stitches. It doesn't cover every use case, but it can really help build your confidence because you're doing a lot of practice over the course of this project. It's also a great stash buster. So there you have it. That's 7 different knitting skills that you can master to take your skill from beginner to an intermediate and advanced level. And if you feel confident with some of these techniques but just need to practice one, those are some really great free patterns that I feel confident recommending that you can use to practice and build your confidence in those skills. Let me know if there are other skills or knitting skills that make you nervous, that you want patterns to practice with, and I'll look up some resources for those for you as well. I hope that this video was useful. If you found it helpful and you want more videos like these, you can go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.